Hi, everyone. I'm Marcus Grimm with Medtrics, joined, as always, by Medtrics CEO Tosh Cherian. How are we doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great, Marcus.
We've been to many cities together. We've been to many trade shows together. Every now and then, when you and I are asking ourselves big questions, one of the ones that we ask ourselves is Medtrics a software company or a service company? And let's face it, everyone who buys Medtrics, they get licenses, they're logging into software. It's pretty easy to think of it as a software company, right?
It is. And that's what the industry's been used to. Commoditized software. You take it and you do whatever you can with it. Basic data management so that when you have an accreditation or something, you have something to check off and you have some way to extract data into an Excel report. That's what the industry's used to.
And it seems like more and more as you spend more time out on the road and you figure out ways to make your clients more successful, you're almost realizing that you're more than just a software company.
I'm actually realizing that the software doesn't even matter. It's getting to a point where software can be adapted and molded in so many different ways quickly. And it's simply a tool. What really matters is the years of experience in the industry that allows us to diagnose and solve specific problems that customers have. And it's actually better to think of it as organizations. They're not simply customers. An organization has multiple departments with different needs, multiple processes. And in order to really get value out of a complex enterprise system, you got to understand all pieces and then be able to connect things that you're not always going to connect yourself, because organizations have many silos, whether it's communication silos or data silos. And our job as companies that are working with these organizations is to break down those silos and connect things that normally wouldn't connect. And that's when you really get a value out of technology.
The customer success team, they obviously have their regular quarterly calls and they're checking in with program admins. And that's extremely valuable for the admins of those individual programs. But what I'm seeing from you and the team more recently is, you know what, we need to have meetings with all those program admins in the room. Talk to me about that. You recently came back from one and you said, yeah, this is the model. Tell me about that visit.
Everyone at Medtrics knows I'm a big fan of face-to-face interaction. Part of that is because you don't build trust behind a Zoom window. When you get on a call, it doesn't matter if you bring all of these stakeholders in a large organization together. There's going to be one person talking and everybody else is silent. But put them all together in a room where they're looking at each other and joking around and catching up on things that they're catching up on, then you really have a conversation about the problems, what's working, what's not working. Through the pandemic, we got kind of used to doing Zoom all the time. This recent site visit reminded me that it's really about putting these individuals together and letting them break down their own internal communication silos and then allowing the technology to connect the gaps. When we get a deep understanding of the entire organization and they start talking to each other, they're seeing the problems firsthand. Otherwise, you kind of just peripherally see, yeah, so-and-so does this and it gets done. But so-and-so may be spending 30 hours doing that one thing when they don't have to.
One of the things I find really interesting is when you talk about this in-person, this FaceTime stuff, it's really easy to sound kind of gushy and friendly, and certainly that's a part of it. But when you shared with me some of the heavy-duty challenges that group uncovered, it's the type of meeting that I say, you know what, I've been in a lot of Zoom meetings, and I don't know how you get there in Zoom. Talk to me a little bit about some of the challenges the group was talking about and some of the ahas for them that were coming from other people in the room.
Yeah, that's a very good point. It's not simply about putting people in the room, because if you put people in the room, they could be talking about what's for lunch. Right. It's also about putting an expert in the room to ask the right questions to facilitate the discussions so that you're uncovering these things because of those strategic questions, driving up the engagement and also uncovering problems. And it comes from years of working with different organizations, and you know what questions to ask.
The existing quarterly calls with program administrators, that's going to continue, and it's a core part of how we provide service. But you're going to be doing more at the organizational level. What do you expect to be doing with clients over the next several months?
What we're going to be doing is doing more site visits, similar to an accrediting body going on site and learning about everything that organization is doing. We are going to be going on site with our customers. It's something that we're going to be doing as part of our relationship with the customer. For our newer customers, it's going to be doing this in the beginning of that relationship as part of the onboarding process. And for existing customers, working out a timeline to do that so that we can come on site and see how else they can use Medtrics. For example, when we went on site with one of our customers recently, we uncovered about 10 different projects that we can do with different departments that is leveraging the existing modules. Medtrics is built in a way that you can use it for different purposes. And it's a matter of simply developing the process and communicating and training the teams to use it so they cut down on all the spreadsheets and paperwork. Us going on site in the beginning will allow us to lay the foundation of the schedules, evaluations, and other things in an efficient way. And then later on, when we do a second visit, it'll be about how do we take that to the next level and streamline more and more processes so there's a real digital transformation that happens.
Part of this is kind of natural maturity in that I think in the early days, we sold a lot of one program at a time, one program here, one program there. And now suddenly when you've got all these programs across a university, it's almost like now you and the team are exposed to these challenges that don't exist at the program level, but at the institutional level. Is that fair?
That's absolutely fair. And also we are attracting organizations at an enterprise level now. We have institutions that are coming to us saying we have 2 medical schools and a nursing school and a veterinary school, and we want to make sure that we're streamlining operations across the board. So it's a whole different approach than if we were simply working with one school.
That is a tremendous challenge because I would tend to think that you and I are talking about the inefficiencies in the software, but when we talk about organizations like that, multiple schools like that, those are silos in many, many ways, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely the case. And we have one client who, over the course of 4 years, streamlined operations across 2 medical schools, 1 vet school, and a nursing school, all into Medtrics so that every single team is using Medtrics and the IT operations of that organization is also now streamlined so they don't have to support so many different products and processes.
Talk about some of the other key benefits that you get when that happens. What does that client enjoy?
So IT has that benefit, but also it's about training staff. Medical education is very complex with tons of jargon and nuance. It takes years to be an expert in that industry. So when you have staff turnover, and now you have someone that is coming into the industry and you have to learn about medical education, accreditation, operations, and then this complex software product. If you have one system, then you have multiple team members that are trained in it. It's very easy for that organization to onboard a new employee and for them to get support from their colleagues and also have coverage. If someone's sick, then somebody else can cover it. There's no single failure point.
When you talk about taking Medtrics up to the institutional level, it uncovers a lot of different use cases that are quite frankly a little bit non-traditional. Things like dean's letters that get pushed out at the institutional level. Those weren't the types of things you were talking about a few years ago, but tell me about that.
One of the things that we realized is that when you're supporting on the enterprise level with multiple schools, it's not simply about accreditation of that one school. It's about how does the university or the health system operate. We are now supporting organizations at that level where maybe there's an annual dean's report that needs to get put together, or a large health system with residency programs has to do a annual program evaluations where they analyze every single program and their KPIs. When you get to that level of streamlined operations, we're now discussing how to do that in one process across the university rather than each school having their own different process and then having to collect pieces from different software systems or spreadsheet and having to submit that to the leadership every year. That becomes very inefficient and the data is often not accurate.
Tosh, we know right now that medical schools, they're always trying to grow, right? More students, more programs. That's the goal. At the same time, those students need to be supported, right? And they need to be supported by FTEs. But at the same time, we're trying to bring more students in. It's not a great time for colleges and universities to be trying to recruit more employees. And that's really where a system like Medtrics can help, right?
Yeah. Universities are really struggling these days because of budget cuts. Where they can really leverage technology is not trying to cut back on technology, but double down on the technology that can cover multiple processes across different departments. So that if you consolidate the number of products that you have and then invest into building up expertise in-house to use those tools, then rather than having to hire a whole bunch more team members to operate the medical school as you have more students, the team members that are there can be focused on supporting the students rather than spending a lot of time managing different inefficient technology products.
Let's distill this down. You've got so many different modules at Medtrics. I'm going to name 3 of them, and I just want you to give me like a 20-second about here's how this module saves time. MSPE.
Schools spend months putting together MSPE letters by aggregating information from 4 years of education. Medtrics takes that information from one central source and drafts the letters and put together all of the histograms and charts automatically. It sounds like magic, but it takes about 2 to 3 months for us to develop the process, and it is magic afterwards. Where every year you're spending days to weeks doing this instead of months.
Outstanding. Here's another one. Curriculum mapping.
Curriculum mapping is one of the critical processes for accreditation. Often this is maintained as on spreadsheet. Medtrics puts your curriculum front and center in front of your faculty members and students so that they don't have to go guess what's being taught, and faculty don't have to spend time recreating this every year. It's streamlined in one place. And these days, we also help schools fully map the curriculum using AI. It's a service that is included with our subscription, so faculty don't have to do this manually.
And let's talk about one of your power user features, the outbound module.
Outbound module is purely about automation. How do you create processes that notify different individuals in the organization when things are happening in the system or certain action needs to be taken? A student fails an exam, notify the student and the advisor that they need to connect and provide more support to that student. Fully automated.
Now, what I find interesting about these 3 modules is if you are a program out there and your student count goes up by 20%, without these modules, your workload just increased by 20%.
Sometimes even more than 20%. Similar to a company like Medtrics, when you add one more employee, the communication complexity is exponential. It's not simply a linear growth when you have the complexity of an organization. So you add 20% more students, those students are interacting with faculty, administrative staff. It becomes a really challenging thing for that school to manage unless they streamline the operations from the beginning.
Well said. For Medtrics, I'm Marcus Grimm, Santhosh Cherian. Have a great day.